haven't seen a man jump into the pits of hell all for a little chest grab since Denji from Chainsaw Man, but damn if Maru didn't go for it. Yeah, he may have been blocked and didn't ultimately get his reward that he was promised, but then again, he did end up holding Kiriko's hands, so then again, Kiro and Maru holding hands, arguably the lewdest thing you can do in anime, so I guess it's not all complete failure. But man, Buddy went for it. I mean, initially when Kiro was kind of like bringing up the concept of like, hey, you know, do you see me as a girl? He's like, well, of course I do. Look at how you are. You probably don't want to hear that, but that's how I feel. I was like, oh, what's going to happen is Kiro's going to basically manipulate Maru into go getting the battery that they dropped, and then ultimately that's how it'd go. No, it's like, hey, I'll let you grab my chest if you go do it. Buddy didn't even hesitate. He jumped down into the pits of hell, willing to go up against that mutated looking bear. At times it looked like a bad puppy, at other times it looked like a bear, but either way, that thing was packing a mean punch, and man, if Denji wouldn't be proud of what he did, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we saw a similar situation with him in Power, and damn if both these boys weren't down bad, but bless them, they made for some entertaining content. Do a full live reaction to episode 6 of Heavenly Delusion, available on my Patreon if you do want to see my full uncut thoughts. This was a wild episode. It was an intense episode, both on the violent and death-filled side, but also on the provocative. Buddy almost ended up in the full-blown situations that he's been imagining since he discovered the nudie mags an episode or two back. So initially, when this girl comes in who proclaims herself as basically the king of the hotels, has a dream, has a vision, that's for sure, and basically wants to create a string of brothels by the looks of it, but the fact that it comes in, like, bangs on the walls, don't dirty the beds, don't basically forsake these walls whatsoever, and then just straps in for a ride being like, hey, if you trade me that flashlight, I'll give you a good time. And I'm like, boy, you were literally risking your life for a little squeeze when literally around the corner, for the price of a flashlight, you could have had the full thing. And then he's just freaking out. Back then when Kiro comes in, I mean, the pants are down. It's just, you can't get more awkward and on the nose than that, but boy, was that an intense moment. But I think in the midst of all that flirtatious, flustered, oh my god, she's selling herself for basically better beds in the walls. I mean, at the end of the day, this episode actually did progress these two's relationship quite well, because a big thing for someone like Kiro, you know, basically, I'm a guy, you know, I'm basically trapped in my sister's body, like, I feel like this isn't my body to use. It's also like, I feel like I'm this person, and then ultimately you have someone like Maru, who's only ever known them for currently who they are. So it's a pretty interesting relationship being blossomed, all things considered. And up to the hand-holding moment, I was willing to say, like, it's completely possible romantic or even physical love interest could be completely one-sided. But then again, with how they end it with the hand-holding, it definitely seems to me that something is brewing there, and I like that. I think in terms of a connection, a potential relationship, I'm here for whatever they deliver. And I think despite it seemingly starting off as maybe like okay, you're kind of like my sis in the role, I mean, obviously traveling together as long as they have and ultimately not actually having a familial bond, is completely understandable that the boy has developed a little more than that. But overall, like, it was a pretty intense episode. I mean, it's interesting, not only did they go up against something that wasn't a monster, so the whole Maru touch can go in and destroy the heart, which provided for some pretty funny comedy as Boo Boo wakes up from his nap and pretty much chases them up a tree, all things considered. Yeah, concrete block, but that's basically the equivalent of being chased up a tree by a bear in any other situation, especially comedy ones. But then you also have the whole idea that in the middle of the provocative scene, he ends up like doing the Maru touch, but going inside like a human heart, or at least that's how they're directing it. And it's interesting because, you know, you start the episode more or less off with him unable to do something against a non-monster, and then in the middle of it, they're directing it as if he was doing it. Whether it was all in his head, whether it was him actually connecting and maybe just confusing himself on what he can or can't do with this ability, it's pretty interesting, all things considered. And I love the fact that, you know, they've been going up against nothing but either people trying to kill them or these really weird, twisted monsters that we don't know what they are and where they truly come from. And then they go up against Mother Nature at the end of the day. You know, they're told, oh, it's just like this crazy monster. It turns out it's just an insanely strong bear. And I think it's interesting, right? Because they pretty much waste the shots right away. I mean, initially, it's not a bad plan, but I was thinking to myself, 2 shots to take down this giant cylinder to fall on the bear. Like, I thought it was just going to miss the bear and the bear was going to climb over and they'd have like some meme faces. And then when I see it on its back, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is actually seemingly going to work. And of course it doesn't. And I mean, the fact that you drop the battery after trying to warm it up in the sun, like, it's just, This was not their day whatsoever, and to have something that at the end of the day, should they kill it, they would actually be able to have a decent meal, because they've been eating like spoiled beans or way past the expiration date cans or whatever they find in the woods. Like, this is a bear. Like, they could actually eat that meat and at the end of the day probably have something that actually felt pretty tasty in the grand picture of what they have been consuming. So it was nice that they actually did show them eating said meat, because they're like, hey, the body didn't disappear after we killed it, so we ultimately could eat it. There's all these like little moments you'll see in an episode which by themselves, it's not really anything to really praise about, but they add together to make a pretty immersive experience. We're in a world with laser guns and monsters and mutated children. It's not the closest thing to reality in many ways, but they make it feel like reality for these characters. Like the moment after they come out of basically this basement which is flooded, and they find a couple of people who basically have those giant claw marks on the back. Boss doesn't end up making it, even though they do end up saving him in the moment. I like the fact that as they're waiting for the bear to either go away or for them to just figure out what to do, they take their shoes and socks off so it can sit in the sun and they will no longer be wet. Because in the moment, are you really going to think about your wet feet? No. But if you got nothing else to do and you got some time to kill, yeah, I don't think many people want to sit there with soaking wet feet. It's all those little moments, whether it's them actually showing them eating the bear that they killed, which for once is actually fresh meat, or them taking off their clothes so it can dry. All those little moments show like, oh, this actually feels like reality for them, rather than these are just the characters we're following in an anime season that are going through the motion and hitting the plot points so that it feels like a contrived story. And to me, that actually adds a lot of immersion. We didn't get a lot on the facility side. We got a little bit around like the 2/3 of the way through the episode. We got like a couple of minutes, which were pretty haunting. And then there was the after the credits moment, which was another couple of minutes. But overall, I mean, they made use of the short amount of time given. The one dude who's basically the doctor looking in knows someone's basically causing a ruckus. There was the footprint. Now has like a 92% match that it is Tokyo who was the one responsible. Now it's not 100%, so not completely to blame, but obviously that's not looking good. You have Tokyo pretty much having these weird nightmares, which I'm pretty sure wasn't all in her head. Ultimately, there's this weird alien person who giant brain haunting the hospital room, and we're seeing the mutated arms and limbs. It feels like this is a character who's either going insane or is mutating into something, and given the fact that we just burned a body in the prior episode and some form of egg or heart was left behind, these kids are in for a rude awakening sooner rather than later. Though the thing that has my mind racing the most is what's gonna happen, because now that we know Tokyo is sleeping with this dude, ultimately, like, pregnancy's gotta be on the horizon. I mean, they don't have sex ed in this world. Like, they're not taught about these things. They're very oblivious to things. So what's gonna happen if Tokyo gets knocked up? Like, I'm very curious about that, because honestly, like, I don't think they tell them a lot based on the reaction of how they were so confused that they even knew about sexual pleasures like kissing to begin with. So honestly, it'll be interesting. Though it does seem like something or someone is manipulating the cameras, and it doesn't seem to be any of our human characters. I saw some people a few episodes back say that they actually thought, because I said I thought it was the baby, and then I saw other people say they thought it was Tokyo. I saw a few people say that they actually thought it was that pregnant machine-looking mother that maybe is manipulating the whole facility. And I think that's a pretty good idea, especially after seeing as much as we have so far. And if that turns out to be the case, is it trying to rebel against the system? Is there a bigger conspiracy at play? I don't know. But either way, Heavenly Delusion, it was intense both on the violent side and the provocative side, and it made for one insane-ass episode that, Jesus, I still don't know where we're going, and the fact that manga readers keep saying, hey, I'm caught up with the manga, and I still don't know where it's going. That's how you know you got a series that completely is clicked with the mystery aspect, and you're like, what the hell is this world, and what has it done to these characters, alive or currently dead, that we just don't realize? But let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell, of course, so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. Like I mentioned, full live reaction is available on my Patreon. You can also get a video shout out as well while you're there. So today we have Tony, Master Paradoxa, and Gomasen. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.